Hi, and welcome to another Rigonomicon.com video. Today we're going to be talking about IK blending. So the first part of the video, I'm going to be going over some theory and showing you some things that are built into Maya that not very many people use and has been kind of forgotten, to be honest with you. But I'm going to show it to you because it's important to understand that Maya has a very long history of development. So things like IK were written around 1998 from when it was released, and it hasn't really changed that much since then, and it's not going to match what certain constraints are doing. And later on, you're going to see that we're going to be using that in a way where it makes it easier for us to blend in a more modern version. I'm going to refer to it as a Trinity Rig. A Trinity Rig means you kind of have three rigs in one. I'll explain that in more detail in just a moment. But then we're also going to be looking at something more exotic that's more commonplace in many other softwares, but it can be very handy in Maya as well, because the stuff that I'm going to be showing you is going to be working in Maya. So it's just a question of did we want to use it, or are we just used to using these other methods that might be more from turn of the century? Okay, so let's just start with some basics, okay? I've got this really crappy skin done here for the Stormtrooper, and it's good enough for what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working basically on one arm. And one last thing I want to mention is that one of the reasons why I haven't gone through this, you'd figure this would be one of the simple things to do in a video, and one of the first things I would show. And the reason why I haven't done it up until now is because you can bypass this problem. If you're doing shots for your personal film and such, you can use whatever system you want. You don't need to blend between IK and FK all that often, in fact. So you can have a shot where it's in FK and another one that's in IK. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can just turn it off. And that's fine. So blending between the two is very specific, because you have a shot where it's clear that you need an FK section, and you need another one that's an IK. So this is where this comes in, where if you really need a shot for this, then but that's the reason why I haven't done this yet, and it's pretty late in the game to be showing this, because you might not even need it. But quite often, every single rig that you're going to find out there is going to have this. Quite often, it's there. Okay, but again, it's a question of over-engineering. Do you really need to be able to blend? Another thing I want to mention is this on-screen keyboard. I'm going to leave this here. I find that it might be useful. Please leave me a comment in the comment section if you think that this is handy to have, because as I'm pressing buttons, it lights up and shows you what button I'm pressing, and I don't have to be so verbose on everything that I'm doing. So that might be nice. And the only reason why I discovered this is because my cat usually sits right between me and the keyboard, and I can't work anymore if he does that. And I don't really want to disturb him. So anyways, I bring this up, and sometimes I just use my Wacom to press the buttons, and I get through. Okay, so we're going to go to Skeleton, and we're going to get to know our IK system a little bit in a way that probably none of you have ever didn't even know. So when we do this, we do know about this thing called an IK handle that gets generated. There should be also something called an end effector or effector that got generated. Whenever you use Maya's IK, like the default one, you're going to find that a lot of these little objects get thrown around here, and it starts to be messy. And if you delete any of these or move any of them, you can really mess things up. So if I select this handle, it's also going to start. You're going to notice that whenever I select the handle, there's a line that was being drawn in here. There's a circle here, and there's even a pole vector being drawn to tell me where the elbow is pointing. And you can actually control it like this if you wanted to through this. Not a lot of people see this, because most often we have another object that drives that other one, and the second that you don't select it, it won't do anything. So it only works if you select the object directly. So one of the things we're going to do here to make it easier to see what's going on with this is I'm going to go to my shapes, and I'm going to add a bacon-shaped bone to it. Just a quick note. this little plugin will allow you to add visual things to any object in your scene. So I'm going to set this now to something with a loop. There we go. That's pretty good. And I'm going to also make it so that it matches that rotation. That's cool. The X-ray is getting in the way of understanding what's going on. There we go. That's much better. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker and maybe more of a cuff, a tighter cuff. Okay. So now the IK handle, when I select it, it's still drawing all this other stuff because I'm still technically selecting the IK handle. So that hasn't stopped working. All right. And if I move it, you're going to see that the hand is not moving, is not locked onto this thing. So if I wanted to, you could make it so that the hand is constrained to this IK handle if we wanted to. But right now, that's not important. What we want to know is about the arms IK and how do we blend between that and FK. So the easiest way to know what's going on is when you select the most important thing that's on the IK handle is something called the IK blend. And that will determine if you're in FK, which is 0, or if you're in IK, which is 1. And when you're in 0, that means that I can rotate. And one thing you probably noticed is, how did it know where to go? Well, when you're in FK, one of the features of an IK handle is that it will go and update the position of the IK handle so that it matches the result of the FK. So that's a neat feature that many people are not aware of. That can happen with the IK handle from Maya. Now I'm going to do another thing. Okay, so I'm going to set a key to this IK handle, position and rotation. Key applied. And I'm also going to apply a weight to this IK blend. All right, so now we're going to start using the node editor. And I just want to see these objects. If I could select them, these three nodes here and the IK handle itself are what I want to be able to see. So, well, there was a little bit of a screen thing there. Refresh, no problem. It's not a big deal. I'm going to click that little plus sign, and it's going to add these 3 objects and the IK handle. This is how it draws the handle in this view. So we have all of these objects. I won't go into too much detail into this inverse scale to inverse scale. Just know that this is the hand. So I'm going to put it in another order so we can understand it a little better. So the upper hand is here. The upper arm, the lower arm is here, and the hand is here. And each time the scale of a parent is sent to the inverse scale of a node. And then we have our handle here, which has information about... right now, it's only showing us that this is the starting point for the IK handle to work, and that's all we need to know about that. However, for the scaling, just know this. If I were to scale, let's say, this middle joint, you're going to notice that the hand does not scale. It stays in its original form. At first, you're going to think, yeah, that's actually a really good feature. That's neat, because this is how you could avoid that issue with scaling, right? Non-uniform scaling, isn't that nice? In a way, it is for certain types of animation. Just know that when you're going to export this as an FBX, it's going to have to export it as if that connection wasn't there. And if you were to scale this like so, for it to be a small hand, you would have to scale it like, well, you get the idea. You'd have to scale it down, right? All the fingers are also inverse scaled from the hand. So it would have to scale it small, which means you're basically adding a key to this when you export it in FBX. Even though it's, this little line here, there's no animation, but if you were to export this, you can't export this inverse scale thing in the FBX. So it would actually convert that into scale values outward. So this is not a good solution to that problem that we've seen many times in even our golden rules. The first one, no scaling. Try to stay away from scaling as much as you can and make sure that you are clear of that. Okay, so we've gone through a lot of reasons why you want to avoid scaling. So having this thing doesn't really fix anything. And also we're introducing a new problem. Let's say you wanted to make the Stormtrooper bigger by simply scaling the parent, right, the root node. that makes sense in your head, right? So if I were to scale this whole character should scale. Well, it will not. It's actually just, it seems like it's just translating. The reason why that's happening is all this inverse scaling is countering the scale, and the children are still, for its position, is not being countered. So the space of the object is increasing, which means this position is now in a bigger place. Anyways, it's not a very good solution. So just ignore that line. Just know that it's kind of a way to know how the hierarchy is built when it comes to joints. You're going to notice this thing does not show up anywhere else. It's only a joint thing. So enough about that. And let's get back to making our IK here just to understand what's going on. So now if I go to frame, I'm going to go to frame 50. And I'm going to set a key to the IK blend. And then I'm going to go to frame, I guess 100. And I'm going to set this to 1. So it's going to set another key. So now we have this kind of thing. And from here on, this would be, because it's at 1. So it started in FK. And then it blends in these from 50 to 100. And then from 100 plus, it's in IK, right? So all is good. So now what you're going to notice is that as I was doing this, you're going to see that if I try to move this, let's say because I have keys set to it, if I go like this to this object, right? It's just animating that thing. Because it's in FK, the IK handle doesn't do anything. And then you're going to notice that I'm going to go all the way to the end here. I'm going to move it up some more. And now we have ourselves a very interesting IK that's kicking in. So for the bottom half, I'm going to animate the FK. All right, so if what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this down because the node editor is really difficult sometimes. It really does a bizarre layout, and it's really annoying. But okay, so what I'm going to do is get rid of the mesh selection. I'm going to select these two bones, and I'm going to set keys on rotation. Okay, see, I added keys, and already this is like in a weird place. But okay, I'm going to move them around. Nothing, not a big deal. So if I go to this frame here, 0, and let's say I rotate to frame 50, I'm going to rotate it like so now. It's going to add keys to that, and I'm going to open this up like so. So now you should see this is an FK, and that's the IK that's kicked in, and it's blended between the two. If I select this IK handle, now this is something that not a lot of people know. If you select an IK handle and you've done FK and IK animation, it's going to show you the different results with colors. So as it's doing the blend between the two, it's going to show you what the IK is doing. It's going to show you what the FK is doing, and it's going to show you where you are during that blend. See? And so this is helpful in some ways, but it's kind of like, okay, so I've got keys here going into an object for FK. I've got keys going into this thing because if let's see here. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't. All right, so if I do this, okay. It's going to be, okay, let me do a little cleanup. The clavicles here somehow. Okay, so I'm going to do this, move it around. This is cleaner. Yeah, okay, handles here. This is what I was talking about. It really makes a mess sometimes. And didn't want to do this. Oh, here we have the effector. See, we're going to ignore the effector. We don't need that. And I'm going to hide that because it's just something that's storing information. For the most part, just think that this is storing some information. But it's not actively doing anything with keys or anything like that. Okay, so now we've got the IK hand, like the thing that was blending for the IK from 0 to 1. That's this here. Then we have all the rotation values that we set keys at for each of those, right? So we've got the rotation values and the translation keys here. They're just not in a very good order. And then we have, it didn't take long. Like this now makes sense, right? So we have this object, which is the IK handle. It's got position and rotation values and the IK on and off. We have these two FK bones, and each one of them has XYZ rotation values, right? Okay, so hopefully that's not too difficult to understand, because I know it can be tough to understand what's going on. And that's kind of the point of what I'm doing here. This system, you'll notice that not very many people use, because one, it depends if you're selecting the IK handle to see the information. Two, it's difficult to understand how the values are actually being blended, because you have the values being stored here for FK, and the IK is on the hand, but we don't know what the actual values for the rotation are for the actual nodes. So this value here, like if I go into the IK section, you're going to have a value that you don't know where it's coming from. So if I were to open up the, let's see here, if I go to Windows, Animation Graph Editor, you're going to see that there's a lot of information that these are the, this is the arm and these are the two arms, and we're in a section where clearly the values are changing. You can see them changing live there, but it's a hidden hand that's doing it. It's some sort of hidden object that's updating somewhere, and it's plugging it in correctly, but because it's just it's just telling us that there's just keys, right? So this is one of the reasons why we don't like this system as is. We're going to be, using this to blend things is no one uses this. Because of this exact reason. It's like there's a lot of values that are hard to understand. So all of this just to say, even though that's been there for a long time, and we do have a way of blending between the two, and it has some nice features to be able to show you where things are, it's not very practical from the perspective of actually animating. All right. And even though this isn't hard to understand, there's definitely stuff in here that we don't know where it's coming from. Okay, and just that alone should put a little alarm bell. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another thing. I'm going to open up our Stormtrooper again. I'm going to put our Stormtrooper over here so we can see him. And I'm going to just do something else that this is all part of the theory section of it. I generally always do this so that we have a better understanding of what's going on before we just go and plug or do some sort of recipe to solve the problem. We need to understand how these things are working before we start building our rig. And if you're someone who's just looking for the solution, it's and the methods that I'm using, there's going to be buttons that do all this stuff, and there's going to be a section in the video where you just kind of sit down and do the thing, and that's it. But I strongly recommend against that kind of mentality. You're just setting yourself up for an AI to one day replace you, frankly, if you do that. And I'm saying it very clearly because this is something that's important to understand in rigging. The better that you understand the theory part that I'm doing here, the clearer and easier it is for you to later to manipulate things to make it work the way you want it to. So don't always expect for some sort of recipe that solves everything. You just do it and learn where the buttons are. That's not going to help you. And the best part is whatever I'm showing you here, a lot of it is going to be reusable in other softwares because they all, under the hood, they're all using the same thing. So I'm going to minimize this. So I just have the node editor, and I'm going to create a bacon joint with the shape already built into it. And I'm going to bring that up here. Okay, let me zoom in here so we can see what we're doing. And for the sake of the people looking at this video, I'm going to increase the wire thickness. That's visibility. Wire thickness is over here. I'm going to make it 5 so you can see it nice and clear, right? It's not hard to see. This thing's not super easy to see, but we'll be okay. I'm going to just get rid of the shape. We don't need the shape. When we created it, we created a locator as a joint, and we're using the visuals from the bacon shape. Okay, which has all kinds of features. Okay, so now the other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to select this and then select this, and I'm going to match one with the other in rotation. So it has the exact same rotation. I'm going to now include this guy into our graph here. Okay, so the bacon joint is going to be constrained to the upper arm. And the reason why I'm going to be doing that is because you're going to see that I'm going to pin this. So because it's always tough. Anyways, so the upper arm, now I'm going to add a key. Actually, no, I'm not going to add a key. I'm going to do a constraint first. I am going to send this to that through a constraint. I'm going to make it so that this object always follows this object as a constraint. So think of this as IK or any other. This works for any constraint except for the Maya IK specifically. And I call it a Maya IK because I have my own IK that is more, it works more like a constraint. It's more modernized. You got to remember, like I mentioned before, it's 1998 when the software came out. Early stuff is different from stuff that was even there 10 years ago. So I'm going to make a constraint without any offset. So it's going to be 1-to-1. And because we did a match orientation, it should be it shouldn't move at all. So you're going to see this kind of setup, and you're going to be like, whoa, what are all these little white weird wires? Is this like circuitry? What the heck is this? So I work a lot in the node editor because I get to see how everything is set up, and I create my own constraints with my own nodes and connect things in this way. And I've created multiple buttons now to do a lot of these things for me automatically, kind of like what we just did with the adding the constraint. What you're going to notice is that the upper arm now has an orange line going into rotate. If I open that up, the orange line is just to indicate that the X, Y, and Z components, let me see if I can, there, that's easier to see. The X, Y, Z components of whatever this is calculating is going into this object. Now you're going to notice that this rotation is set to 0. And if I select this object, it's not 0. So, so here's going back to our theory. Remember this rule here: the translation, rotation, and scale values of any object are always dependent on its parent. And that means that this object, to end up in this orientation, it's got its own keys, and then it is parent of this one. So all of its values are going to be dependent on this node here. This object has a completely different parent. Because it doesn't have any, the world becomes its parent. Right? So if the world is its parent, this is what the values would be necessary for it to have this orientation. And over here, it's saying this object has a parent, and also, this object has a parent, and it has its values, and also it has maybe joint orient information as well. And so if I look here, I'm going to find that it's got this rotation built into it. And yet all of that is working flawlessly. When I rotate this here, it's going to match 1-to-1 the orientation of this object. Okay, so basically that's what this is. This object can calculate what values are necessary for the two orientations to match. It will take this value in world space, let's say, and then it will figure out what the local values necessary in just these rotation channels need to be in order for it to match. Okay. So we got that part of the theory out of the way. And all we're doing is we're saying this object here, which I will also pin, is the thing that calculates that value, and it's plugging in directly into the object. And what you're going to notice as well, this is very important, you'll notice it turned blue. Blue is an indicator of what kind of thing is connected to it. Blue means it's a straight up constraint or value coming in from some other wire. All right, things that you've connected. Now, I need you to think about this for a second. We know that when we animate an object, it creates, like we saw before, it'll turn it red, and we'll add one of these little boxes that contain key information for each channel, and then connect it. So I need you to consider this. What happens if I set a rotation key to this object right now? What's going to happen? Just give it a second. Just try to think it through. Try to imagine, how would you set that up? Okay, so I'm going to set a key now, and let's see if it meets your expectations. So this is what it decided to do. It sent the information. I'm going to move this around like so to make it easier for us to understand. All right, remember this is the bacon joint, sending information to a calculator basically that is punching out these values that are no longer connected directly to the object, and it's putting it into something called rotate to. And now we have our keys that are here, right? If I open up my my graph editor, the keys were 0. Our values were 0, so the values are 0. And they're being stored here. And it's being punched into this thing called a pair blend. This is going to be a very important thing. This node is what allows us to blend between different things. It can be values from a constraint. It could be keys directly. It could be nothing. It could be just values that you punch in directly into the object. You can blend, if it's a rotation or a translation, you can blend it together with this thing. And you're going to also notice is that I'm going to open this up with the hamburger symbol, okay, so we can see more. Because there's a thing called the weight, and we couldn't see what it was connected to, but now we can. And it's connected to something called blend orient right there. Now this blend orient is the thing that's controlling how much of this rotation is actually being sent to the object and how much of this rotation is being sent to the object. And right now it's set to 0, meaning it's FK. Meaning if I rotate this, it is free to do what it needs to do and nothing can stop it. If I rotate it here, nothing happens because it's set to FK. So this works for all kinds of constraints, but it's still not perfect because we're going to have a little bit of difficulty understanding what keys or what's going on with the keys. If we were to do that thing again with the blending, we're going to find some strange things, but at least there's not going to be any hidden values. The values are this thing and then these things. That's the main thing we just gained from this. The only problem is that this object is going to have keys built into it, and then when we look in the graph editor, it's going to be tough when we're dealing with in-between weights. You're going to be, here, I'll show you real quick. So since we already have all this, and I'm just going to lock this down because it'd be a nightmare to have to redo that. So this should be, hopefully it's clear to you how this works. This pair blend is the thing that's blending between two different results, and it's sending it to this object. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did last time, and I'm going to set a key to the blend orient here. I'm going to set a key, right? It starts at 0, just like last time. I'm in FK, and then at 100, I'm going to be blending in those frames. I'm going to go to 1, and we don't need to add a key here, but I'm just going to set a key here. Okay, so we have this area here where it blends to the FK, meaning, or rather, it blends to the constraint, which is this thing. So this little object, I'm just gonna make the arm go up and down. So I'm gonna set a key here. So I'm gonna close this because I don't want it to dirty up my. Here's a little trick, actually. You can either open another tab, and while this one's open, whatever I do here, it's going to add it to this one and not affect this one. Or you can close this because I'm going to add keys to this, and I don't want to mess up my graph here. So I'm going to just set a rotation key here. Wait, over here, key selected, right? If I add this object here, you're going to see that it's doing the traditional thing. And set a key over here, nice and easy to understand. And if I just do something like this, over here, you're probably wondering why is it moving? Because we're in the zone where it, I'm gonna open now this graph editor, and I'm gonna try to see if I can show you what's going on as I'm going through here. So all I'm doing is doing a wave, and over here like so, and maybe at the top here I'm gonna, other way, there we go. So it's just kind of doing this wave thing. We could fix it up a little bit, something like that. And the idea here is that it's doing its thing, and it's not like we said, between frame 50 and 100, it's where it actually blends. So we're going to start seeing its influence as we get to 50. Oh, there it is. and it's now it's just 100% controlling it over when we get into this section. But over here, it's slowly activating it, and then it's off. Okay, so we did a blend. And this is clear. We have keys here. We can see them for this object. And we have keys here, which we just did, I think we didn't really do much for it. Yeah, we just animated this. We still haven't animated the arm, so I could do something like this down here. And then it starts to, I can make it do maybe, to be different. I can maybe do this. So it moves forward. And you're going to notice it's going to blend to the other one, which never aimed forward. All right. I don't want to go into much more than that, but it's going to get weird when you get into the mid area and then decide, okay, I want to add a key to my FK, and it's going to maybe ignore you and do these weird things where it's trying to figure out the values, and it's starting to get a little weird. Okay, like all I did was a little animation, and what is this? It's like basically what's happening here is that you're doing a small little adjustment, but depending on what blend value it is, in order to achieve that with the current blend value and current value of this object, it needs to figure out a value that will allow it to get to that, so that the total, when it does all the arithmetic of everything that's going on, it works, and then it takes that value and plugs it into the F groups. That can get messy. That's pretty ugly when you start to deal with any blend area, and you can have a bad time with that. That's why this method of directly using like a pair blend directly with a constraint of this kind, even if this was if this was IK, it's the same thing. It would have been the same thing. This method is slightly better than the last one that we saw, but not much better overall. Okay, in the end, we still have trouble visualizing what's going on here, even though this is much better. At least we can store data and see the data being we can see this object has keys. Now let me undo that. Oh, doesn't matter. I'm going to move that up here. So this object, the little object for reference, has keys. We can see it. And then this object has keys, and then we can blend between those two through a pair blend. So at least we have a better understanding of what's going on. So we've made some improvement to what's going on, whereas before there was a whole bunch of information, data that's being stored somewhere magically. We have no idea how it's dealing with it or how it's storing it. So we have improved our life. Now I'm going to show you. Okay, so for some of you, you're probably jump straight to this section. This is the section where we're going to do an actual, what many people refer to, or at least I think so. I've spoken to many people. We all know what a Trinity rig means. It's a 3-in-1 rig, whatever you want to call it, a blend rig. But technically, these are all blend rigs, but this one's specific. It's a little different than a normal blend rig. It requires 3 rigs in one. And I'm going to show you how to set up IK, even using Maya's standard IK. And I'm going to show you how to, we're going to do a clear of the, we're going to reopen the file, and I'm going to show you how exactly a Trinity rig is set up. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to grab, this is a new scene. There's no IK here yet. I'm going to straight up clone this. And I'm going to select everything below and remove the hand. Delete. So I've got this nice 3 bones that I can use for the IK. That's all we need. And I'm going to create another duplicate and move that up there. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and name these things. So the one with the original naming is the base rig. Okay. And this one, we're gonna just decide this was gonna be the FK rig. So upper arm, FK _L. And then this guy is gonna be lower arm, FK L. And that's gonna be hand, FKL. Now this guy is the one that we're gonna be using we're gonna be setting the IK onto this. And same deal. This IK L, and this is IK L again. I could have done a little script for this. but it doesn't matter. It's not going to take very long. Okay. Okay. Oh, so we've saved all this, and that's good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to make a few changes to the visuals so we can clearly see which is which. And you're going to notice that this now is really easy to read. So this is going to be nice and easy. I'm going to set these up so that we have this object, and this object. And I'm going to add them to the list here. This is the one that's going to be controlled. So I'm going to put that over here, putting the upper arm here, the lower arm underneath, and the hand. We all know about what that inverse thing is. Over here, this is going to be the IK. So that's going to be over here. And the FK is going to be right here. Now we're going to lock this, or rather pin it. Okay, and now I'm going to make this look different so that we're just going to add a bacon shape to it. We don't need this. These are the shapes themselves that came in. And now we have these two that look different. This is nice for FK. You can put circles if you're an aficionado of circles on shapes. The thing that's nice about this is these shapes allow me to see it inside the structure because it's got X-ray on. And this guy, I'm just going to do is grab these two and put a radius that's much smaller. So it almost creates like these little lines. And with that, we're good to go. I think that's good enough. Always file, save as. We're going to call this Trooper Trinity Work in Progress 01. Okay. If anything goes wrong, we can always come back to this point in time. All right, so now all we're going to do is I'm going to explain how a Trinity Rig works. Just like we did before with the pair blends, we could easily just say whatever values are in here and in here, take those values and pair blend them into here. That's the simplest way I can put it. It's just like we did, but we're going to do it manually. It's just like Maya did it automatically. We're going to do it manually. So the other thing is, so we're going to add an IK here. So I'm going to select this, or rather, actually, I don't need to. I just go skeleton, create IK handle. I click on this, and now we also have an IK. All right. And because we want to help ourselves out, we're going to create a shape on this. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. And okay, so these are, let's see, what is this? This is the IK handle itself, so that's good. I'm going to put that up here. This is a shape, and this is an effector. We don't need this. Not deleting it, just hiding it. We don't need to deal with that right now. And this is something from the save, the node editor sometimes. Okay, so we can select things easily actually from here. And we can select the FK very easily here, and this is where we're going to. Okay, so and then I'm going to pin this. Hopefully, I'm not doing too many. I'm going to slow down how I use the node editor so you can see clearly what's going on. So what I'm going to do is the only thing we really care about is the upper arm and the lower arm, and I'm just going to do a pair blend for each one of these. So I'm just going to press Tab, and then I'm going to type pair blend. So it should be the first thing that shows up. And while we're at it, instead of doing it again, I'm going to press Control D, and it should create another pair blend. And this pair blend, you don't need to do the individual channels all the time. I won't go into it too much, but that's part of the secret sauce for the bidirectionalness of what we were seeing before, because we were in FK and somehow the IK handle was following. Without creating a circular dependency, you break it down into channels and you reconstruct. Anyways, it's not important. Right now, just decide what a weight of 1 is going to be. So for IK, I want the IK to be in here and to rotate 2. So that means the weight is going to be 1. Weight 0 means it's the first one. So if I take, this is the upper arm IK, I take its rotation value, and I can punch it into that rotation value in the rotate 2. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing with the lower arm into the other pair blend. I'm going to take its rotation and put it in there. So just to reiterate, a pair blend, when it has a weight of 0, it's going to take what's in the first rotate or translate. If it has a weight of 1, it's taking the second one. All right, so it's transitioning from the first one to the second one. And that's another way of looking how IK or IK control for this is going to exist there to make sure that that logic continues. So now what we want to do is also grab the other rotations that are from the FK. Remember, this is the FK, right? So if I take its rotation here, this is the upper arm, and I punch it into rotate 1, and I take this rotation and I put it into its rotate 1, I now have a way of blending the values between those two. And if I punch this into the out rotate, actually it should be up here. Okay, so I'm just going to move this over here because this is the upper arm, this is the lower arm, this is the blending of the upper arm. So I'm going to take the out rotate, whatever comes out of there, connect it there. I'm going to take the out rotate of this one and connect it here. So for now, because we've connected it, if I select this, you're going to see that the colors have changed. Because it's a pair blend, it automatically changed to these values. And that's not, what's important to know is that you've now taken over the rotate, and you don't need to key this anymore. You won't be keying this. In fact, you're not even going to be seeing this later. So we're going to make this disappear, and depending on which one we have, it's going to appear. So either the IK is going to show up or the FK is going to show up. So right now, as it is, it should be a weight of 0, right? So if our logic is good, this now is the thing that's controlling what the final result is going to be. So something's not right. So if I go here, and for the weight by default is set to 1. So I'm going to set it to 0 now. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And now I'm going to try rotating this. Well. It's working exactly the way we've thought. We just didn't know that the value was set to 1. So that confirms our setup. And now if I were to set these two to 1, I'm going to set them to 1. Now it should be the IK that's controlling them. Sure enough, it's working. Now, the major improvement that we have between these two systems is that before we start, messing around with the IK handle value being put somewhere where we can use it, the main difference between the other systems is that all of the FKs here, there's no blending moment where it's going to be weird. There's no override when you're in IK or anything like that. These objects always exist, and they will have their own values. When you animate this FK, it will have its keys connected to them. And when you animate this IK handle, it will have its values, and the end result is what gets blended. So you're always going to have a very clear-cut understanding of where your keys are. Any system that hides this stuff makes it difficult to understand what the values are. And there's a lot of people who don't even care about values. They just rotate stuff until it's the right pose, and then they click buttons to fix things when things don't go right. But by doing this, you're bringing in a lot more control than if we were to use it with the other methods. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start thinking about where I'm going to put the main control. So imagine for to be able to switch it, I can't have this weight and this weight exist independently like this. I'm not going to be selecting these two every time I want to change from IK to FK. This is not an easy place we're going to put it somewhere. If I were to put it on what is traditionally the most common place to put an IK control, the problem with that is that even though it'd be nice to have, it has an IK blend here already. The problem with that is that you have to select this object to be able to actually access it. And if this object disappears completely, then because let's say you're in FK, well, you shouldn't see the IK controller when you're in FK, which means, how do you control it then? You can't even access it anymore. It's invisible. So what a lot of people do is they will add a new object. We're going to call this guy, we don't need this shape. We just need the actual object here, or transform rather. And we're going to call this IK control. And quite often people will make it look like, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I always see things that look like a plus sign, for example. That one's very common. They always make it look like something like that, or a chevron or something. And they place it somewhere where it's easily accessible and generally always going to be available for the arm. And then this object's the one that gets we add an attribute here. We're just going to call it IK. And we're going to force it so that it can never be less than 0 or more than 1. And I'm going to set the default value to 1. So that means IK. It's not important because once it's created, you can change it to whatever you want. So now we have IK set to 1 here, and that's got a value. Now, if I go over here to this object, like we did before, I'm going to press the little hamburger sign so I can see everything. And look at that. There it is. So now if I were to punch this directly into the weights here, I now have a way of simply selecting this object and turning it on and off. So if I'm at 0, that means we're in FK, right? Let's test it. FK is working. If I move the IK, hang on a second, Wacom troubles. The IK does not affect it. Now if I set it to IK, and I move the IK is working, and the FK is off. And everything in between is also true. So if I were to do 0.5 and move the IK, you're going to see that this arm is going to do something in between these two. See, it's not moving as high as the IK, and it's not. So here it's horizontal, and here it's at 45 degrees. So all good. So far, so good, right? So I'm going to move this guy out of here so it doesn't bother us, because we're going to be using him for, we need those values also to control the visibility. So the visibility is actually really easy. I'm going to show you the simplest way to do this. So when this is set to 0, it means it's FK. But if I set it to 1, it's IK. So if I were to think of visibility that way, that would mean that visibility 1 is visible. Visibility of a value of 0 is invisible. So we're describing the IK basically. So anything that's IK. So this guy over here. So you can move this around while you're doing this, like I'm doing. I do that a lot. It travels. You have a visibility thing. So I'm just going to connect this directly. There we go. Give me a second. There we go. That sometimes I miss. So these are all IK, right? So basically all of these guys are going to have the IK connected to it. So far, we only have the IK connected. So it means if we were to switch to FK, it should disappear. When I'm at IK, it appeared. Okay? So now but now for the FK objects, we need kind of the reverse logic. So this is, there's been a lot of terms out there that get used, like inverse and all that stuff. It's not, none of those are accurate. The term that we have to use is a 1 minus. So 1 minus will take, let's say you have 75% of one, and what you want to have on the other one is 25. So if it's 0.75, or it's 0.75, then the answer that you're looking for the other one would be 0.25. And to do that is you take 1 and you subtract whatever value you started with. So if you have an IK value of 1, 1 minus 1, 0. That's the value that would be put onto the FK, right? So anyways, that's how you invert it. So to do that, it's easy. We're going to look for a subtract value. And while I have it selected, the input is 1, and then minus whatever this IK is. And that output is now 1 minus. So we're going to output that to the visibility here. This is the FK. And that's going to go there. And that's going to go there. So now, if I select this thing, and I change from one system to the other, it's going to make it do that. Nice and easy, right? Cool. The other thing that I'm going to do now that we've actually gotten to this, actually we're going to test it also, the IK control. What happens if I'm at 0.5? You see both of them. Okay, it doesn't understand the greater than. But anyways, if I'm at 0.5, we can still see both of them, so we can make some modifications here. All I'm going to do right now at this point in time is I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to match it to this one. And this guy is going to do the same thing. I'm going to match it. Transition rotation. There we go. And it brought, how convenient, the IK controller with it. And now, if I select this object, I should be able to start seeing the two in action. Now, in order to not see the one that is the most important, which is for like the end result, we don't want people to be messing with the end result. So what we can do is we can just set it so that it's, if we set invisibility, unfortunately the hand will disappear. So because of inheritance. So one of the easiest ways to do this is you select this guy and you say none, don't display, joint none. Now it's no longer visible. And life is good because the hand is still okay. And if we were to, let's see, right now we're in FK, so I'm just going to deactivate mesh selection. If I rotate this, it's going to look like it's the arm. I'm just in FK. And if I go over here and switch it to IK, we're going to see the IK. If we wanted to, we can make it so that we never even see that. And all you're going to have is the IK handle, which allows you to do that. So life is good. This is what we refer to as a Trinity rig. Now, I'm going to show you a method that is quite common in quite a lot of softwares. There's a way we can actually improve this whole system. And I'm going to just create a couple of objects on the ground for you to understand what's going on. I'm going to create I just need a few objects here. I'm already dirtying everything up. Actually, it'll be easier just to do this and go like this is nice and clean. I'm going to lock this down with pen, and then I'm going to go to another tab so I can mess around with what I'm about to show you. So that's one bacon joint. That's a second one. And it's just doing whatever it wants. Okay, there we go. That's there. That's that one. And then this one could go over here. There we go. Okay, so we have them in the same order that we have in here. And I'm going to show you something that will improve this system a little bit with something called instances. Because this kind of stuff where you have to have objects that are floating always, all the time for you to access them, to be able to do like the IK switching, I find it's kind of ugly, to be honest with you. This is not pretty in any way. I'm always a bigger fan of just put it into the object itself, like have it so that it's on the objects that you're dealing with, and make it so that it's if you can instance it, it means there's only one version of it, but it's available on other objects. So let me explain. So let's say that I have this object here, and I want to add, by adding it to this part in the object, it kind of sucks. So one of the things in Maya that's actually interesting is that whenever you add the last shape that you added will be the first thing that gets shown in the second part here, which means it's accessible. So I've added a special shape that you can add. So if you right click on the IK button, you can add bacon IK control instance. When you do that, this object now will have an IK value in the shape section, which is this object here that it created. This is now a shape that is on top of this object, and it's got a value between 0 and 1. Just so that you know, this object has a built-in auto calculator for that 1 minus. So you've got the IK weight and the FK weight. If right now, if I just scroll over that, it's going to say the IK is set to 1, the FK is set to 0 because I've set the weight to 1. So anyways, point is, now we have a nice place to store the IK that's separate from the translation, rotation, and scale. And by doing that, we can now instance this object so that it exists on another object. And I've made it so it's as easy as possible. You select the objects that you want to spread the IK control to. And I'm just going to right click here and say add. It's going to automatically find the one that was on this one and make an instance copy of it onto this one. That means that if I set this to, I don't know, some weird number like that, when I go back to the original one, that number is also here because it is the same instance. If I don't have any instance or any of these controls, it'll automatically detect it and create a new one like it did with the first time we did it. If you select this kind of like so and go add, it'll automatically, let's see. Everything's fine. There's the last one, for some reason, it had a little trouble. So I'm just going to go like this and spread it. No problem. Problem solved. They all have it. Now, any one of these, I can put it to 6. And it will have spread it to the other one, and they all share the same value. Okay? So this will allow us to bypass the need for these kind of objects. So if I go back here, and I decide, okay, I want to be able to have an IK control on, let's see, right now it's set to that. So maybe if I go like this, I want even this object to have it. So I'm going to add an instance version of it. And this is the version, like in the node editor, they will all be this object. So if I select this object and then go like this, it's going to send, it's going to make a copy of that. Maybe we can put it also on the hand just because it didn't have any problems this time. So each one of these now has this IK control. And now I'm going to do, I'm going to set this to 0.5 so I can spread it. So now I can select this guy and select this guy and go IK and connect it there. So now if I select the IK handle, it will have its own IK value here. So at this point, you're probably going to want to not use an IK handle from Maya. You're going to have your own object so that you don't have all this other stuff here for the IK, because you're going to make a, you're probably going to use, like pull vector and all that other stuff. You're not going to want to use this thing with the old Maya setup for visuals, but you get the idea. So now, instead of everything connecting to this object, right now I'm just going to make it so that I'm going to cheat a little. I'm just going to do this. So this object controls that one. And I'm going to grab this thing and I'm going to hide it for now. Like, I'm cheating right now, but basically imagine everything was connected to this. We'd actually done it to this. In Unreal, there's a way of actually, there's a hotkey that allows you to pull this and connect it there, but we don't have that right now in Maya. So basically what's going on now is if I go here and I go IK is like, I can go to any object now and easily, this is much smoother to work with than having to, pressing, oh, Maya crashed. That's interesting. Anyhow, that's a bizarre thing. Normally that yes, close. Okay. I can tell you right now that that's, I think that's the first crash I've had in a very long time. So that's interesting. No worries there. And we weren't even doing anything really tricky there. Just creating some instances. It crashed at one point when I tried to select two that had the instance. That was about it. So that's all we have to deal with. But hopefully that part, it's good that we just finished that. So it's all good. We'll let Maya restart here. And yes, we can look at Earl, a character from the game that I'm working on. He's a giant blob who likes to pre-order things. Anyways, it's a joke picture of him with his own cologne. All right, so the last thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you something called what I refer to now as BK. I used to call it RK for reverse kinematics, but I think bidirectional kinematics is a more accurate thing to call this. Okay, I'm just going to show you this because there's a version of this that already is in Maya through Human IK. In the old days, there was a software called Character Studio, and it was part of 3D Studio Max, and it had this kind of feature as well, where it was bidirectional, meaning you can work in IK and you can work on FK at the same time and add keys, and it was all very stable. Maya's IK, if you haven't added any keys, you can do that bidirectional thing, but the second that you add keys and start adding blends, it starts to react differently, as we saw earlier in this video. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, this is the Stormtrooper again, and I've set him up with an early version of bidirectional kinematics. And this could be very handy for animating. So let's say that you have this, that's going to drive me nuts. I don't want to select the mesh. Okay. So if right now it's purely FK, there is nothing IK here. There's no IK that's been connected to the joints, but there is an IK node with values that are being punched out, but it's not actually connected to anything. If you want to double check, there is nothing in the rotation values that indicate any colors or anything, and no connections, nothing, right? There's nothing happening there. So this is pure FK. Now I'm just going to click on this and I'm going to switch on BK. Now with BK on, what you're going to notice is when you rotate in FK, the IK controls will follow. I'm just doing undo there. And also, if I move the IK controls, it will also control. It's funny because we crashed on something so simple, and Maya is doing BK right now without any problems, which fine. I don't want to get into too much detail, but bidirectional kinematics is kind of a holy grail thing where a lot of people waste a lot of time trying to get this to work, because there's a lot of animators that do not like having to deal with IK and FK and blending between the two. Because one of the things I didn't get to show you is, sure, blending works, but you can't jump from one to the other. You can't send the result of IK to the FK. You can't send the result of the FK to the IK. So that's what we call IK snapping. You want to be able to snap one to the other. Now, I don't like using the term snapping because it's difficult to understand. I've seen arguments about this. I wish I was kidding about this. So if you say snap to IK, some people think that means I'm snapping so that the FK takes on the IK value. So snapping to IK, the FK snaps onto the IK, right? And you're still working with FK, right? So your end result is an FK. And other people think, no, snap to IK means I snap and go to IK, meaning I'm taking whatever's in the FK and I'm converting that so that the IK, then the IK controller is, so if this wasn't on, hang on a second here. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to do an undo. Everything's off now, so great. I have to do this manually. Okay, so since it's off, like if I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an example. Let's say I have this FK and I want the IK to go there. Is that snapping to FK or snapping to IK? And there's arguments about that. So to make everybody's life easier, please do not use the term snap to. Use the term convert. Convert to IK, convert to FK. By saying convert, it's much cleaner. You know that you are going to that thing. Meaning if you're converting to IK, means you're ending up with IK, meaning it was the FK value. So this is the FK. This would then go to where the hand is, and the IK pull vector would go to where that is, where it should be to match that. And if you had it the other way around, if you had the IK set up and you wanted to convert to FK, you're taking the end result of the IK and you're figuring out what the rotation values are needed on the bones to get to that. But this is kind of doing it on the fly for us. So we can do this kind of thing. And we can always just do this. This is another way of saying is this is bidirectional posing as well, because under the hood, it's still FK. And I could have set it up the other way around. I could have set it up so that it's IK, and I have this bidirectional thing where, so that you're controlling one with the other. And right now, under the hood, it's still FK. So that means that if I were to set keys, so let's say I go something like this, I set keys to, these are the three, these are all, there's the 3 bones for the FK, and there's 2 bones for the IK, and I set a key to these things. And then I go to this frame, and I go like so, with this up like that, right? And maybe move that up a little bit. Everything seems to be working just fine, right? So this should be okay. The only thing is, in the in-between keys, IK is doing what IK does. It's interpolating from one point to another. But because this is under the hood IK, under the hood it's FK, it's going to have those lovely arcs that from one key to another. And that's kind of the thing that I prefer. I prefer having FK under the hood all the time, and then just use the IK to be able to set poses, and then to have the IK controls to snap to those keys as long as you have the auto key on so that it matches. And so at the end of the day, you have the best of both worlds. You have beautiful arcs, and you have a really good interaction for posing, so everybody's happy. Now, I won't go into too much detail about how bidirectional kinematics works, because I just wanted to introduce the idea. At the end of the day, if you need to blend keys, that's up to you. If you, depending on the shot, you may not even need to blend anything. If you're using a system like bidirectional kinematics, you don't even need to blend. You're always able to go from one to the other at any time. So that's all I wanted to show with bidirectional kinematics. In the future, I'll be putting more stuff out there to explain how it works and how we can use that tech for other things. And that's it. So hopefully you found this video useful to you, and it explained a few things. All right. Thank you very much.